I'm Eric Marcus, and this is Making Gay History. I admit that I've got a soft spot for PFLAG parents. PFLAG is the organization originally known as Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. The first people I interviewed for my first book more than 30 years ago were a powerhouse PFLAG couple, Amy and Dick Ashworth. And one of PFLAG's founding mothers, Jean Manford, was already one of my heroes long before I started work on my oral history book about the LGBTQ civil rights movement. You can hear Jean and her son Morty's story in our first season. So is it any wonder when I met Paulette Goodman at a PFLAG fundraiser in San Francisco in 1989 that I fell for her hook, line, and sinker? And it wasn't just that Paulette was a PFLAG mom. It was her backstory that got to me too. I was raised in a neighborhood in Queens, New York, filled with Jewish refugees from Germany and Austria who fled the war or survived the Holocaust. Paulette had a survivor story all her own. So here's the scene. I arrive at Paulette's tidy ranch house in Silver Spring, Maryland on a cold December evening. It's one of those days when I've scheduled back-to-back interviews and had to skip lunch, so I'm not just cold, I'm hungry. Thankfully, Paulette has set out snacks on the dining room table. She introduces me to her husband Leo, who retreats to the kitchen to prepare dinner. I'm hoping they'll invite me to stay. Paulette is my idea of a picture-perfect Jewish mother, warm, full-figured, a crown of gray hair, and very concerned that I have enough to eat. While my mind is clearly on food, I force myself to focus on why I'm sitting at Paulette's dining room table. I pull my clipboard from my backpack with the questions I've already prepared and get my tape recorder set up so it doesn't separate me from the snacks. I clip one microphone to my sweater and another to Paulette's blouse and press record. Interview with Paulette Goodman, Friday, December 15th, 1989, 4:30 p.m. Location is the home of Paulette Goodman in Silver Spring, Maryland. Interviewer is Eric Marcus. Tape 1, Side 1. So I'd like to start with a simple one. When were you born?
In 1933.
Mm-hmm. In what part
in Paris, France.
What was life like for you during the war?
We were Jews. We were made to wear the Star of David on our clothing. My best friend called me "you dirty Jew," yet she wouldn't let somebody else call me that. But you know how kids are, just like you queer, you faggot, the same thing. We knew that we weren't supposed to be in any public place.
Why not?
You know, in France, the school week, Thursday you had the day off. And on Thursdays, that was children's time to go to the movies. Jews were not allowed in movie houses.
Why not?
So why not?
Yeah.
Because that was decreed by the Germans. And so if you wore your Star of David, you knew you weren't supposed to be there. So we would take off our Star of David under threat of, being found out, and the whole family would have been wiped out.
Weren't you frightened doing that as a kid, or kids are kids and you don't?
You're kind of uptight about it. You knew that things were happening, and especially since in 1942, I think, my sister, her husband, and their 4-year-old child were picked up and taken to concentration camp. So the police and the Gestapo went to my sister's home. And that very same day, they took both my sister and her husband. My sister was French citizen. My brother-in-law was born in Poland. He was not a French citizen. And I think they were rounding up the what they call the aliens, the non-French people. The following morning, my aunt, who lived in the neighborhood, was supposed to go visit my sister. And she did, and she found out what happened. My sister had pleaded to leave the little boy with the concierge, the super of the building.
Because they didn't want the child, they just wanted the two of them.
Well, they wanted the three of them. But my sister knew that if they took the little boy,
he would be killed.
I mean, we knew by that time what was going on.
Oh, God.
So she begged, and she left my nephew. The next day, my aunt went and heard what happened, and I don't know why she didn't bring the little boy home. Maybe the concierge wouldn't give him to her. But then my mother sent my sister Gabby to pick up André, and as they were walking back towards where in our neighborhood, they were followed by the police and the Gestapo. They followed her to our apartment, and she came up with the 2 French policemen. The Gestapo stayed downstairs, and they told Mrs. Rosenberg, not in Madame Rosenberg, you will have to let this little boy go with us because his mother is asking for him. And my mother says, if my daughter did not take the child yesterday, that means she doesn't want him to be there. And I have brought up 9 children, and I can bring up a 10th. Please leave me my grandchild. This was her first grandchild. She tore her hair out. She made such a scene. And we were there in the kitchen when that happened, and, you know, I remember everything that happened. And they said, look, you better quiet down, and you better let the child go, because if you don't, there are those 2 Gestapo downstairs. They'll come up and they'll take all of you with all the children. So they had no choice. They took my nephew, and he was reunited with my sister. And I think they spent several months in Drancy, which was a camp right outside of Paris. And we did get a couple of letters, you know, through the letters over the wall. We even sent some packages, whatever my mother could get her hold of, to, you know, some food in that camp. And then we knew they were sent to Auschwitz, and we never heard from them again. So that's the background. Now I know what it's like to be in the closet. I know what it's like to be a minority, to be threatened. I lost most of our family, except for my immediate brothers and sisters. One, my older sister, never came back, but aunts and uncles, cousins, people whom I never knew, who lived in Poland, were all exterminated.
Why did your family leave France? You survived the war miraculously.
My parents felt that they never wanted us to go through this experience again.
What year did you move to the United States?
1949.
When I heard you speak recently, you talked about the whole notion of freedom coming to the United States. Did you feel that at the time?
Oh yes, we wanted to live in freedom and safety.
And that's what the United States represented?
Yes, yes. My parents had loved France. I don't think they would have ever left if it weren't for the children really wanting to have a new life for us.
A safe life.
A safe life.
Paulette Goodman interview, tape 2, side 1.
Okay. So no, my sister was not expecting me for dinner. She did not invite me for dinner.
All right, so I'm glad I invited you.
Thank you. I was starved. Because I missed lunch too.
Oh my, you should have said something right away.
Well, that's why I had plenty of crackers too. Never mind. Okay. Let's jump many years later now. Your son is gay, correct? Daughter is gay. I couldn't remember when you spoke which it was.
I said my child because she's not comfortable with my, you know, she feels that if I talk about her, it's invading her privacy. So because I've been so public, I say my gay child. And it's interesting that the press picks up gay son right away.
And I do too. You're right.
This is her picture. This was taken last April, her 29th birthday.
She's my age, well, a year younger. So what I'd like to do then is jump to when you first became aware of this as an issue in your life.
Well, my daughter had been dating since she was 15 and a half. The young man was 7 years older than she was, and he became a friend of the family. They seemed to be compatible, similar interests in music and writing and all that. And he was dating her until her second year in college. And there she fell in love with a young woman. And that was at the end of that relationship. So when we moved here...
You didn't know about this, though?
Mm-mm. When we moved here, he wrote me a letter saying that she had a very special friend at school, and he thought it was more than a friendship.
Oh, boy.
So we all started to go, but I never breathed a word of it to Leo. First I thought, it's a phase she's going through. She'll meet the right fellow and things will be different. It's none of my business. And I didn't know quite how to deal with it. Finally, 9 months later, I told Leo about what the young man had written. And he said, so what? So I was relieved. 3 months after that, she came home for summer vacation. And I sensed that she'd come out to her dad that day because she wanted to go for a ride with him. And when she came home, I was furious. I was so angry.
Why?
Because I felt she didn't trust me. I was hurt. You know, I'm her mother. I love her.
So she came home and you were furious. What did you say?
I confronted her. And then we started to talk. She was crying, and she said the only reason was she thought I'd never understand. She was afraid I, wouldn't let her finish school. We would cut her off.
It must have made you feel terrible finding out that she was so afraid of what you might do to her.
That's right. You know, here is a mother, a devoted, loving parent, and a child is just afraid, can't come to you. I think that's a terrible thing. And I was angry with her for not coming out to me. But, since I've been involved in Parents Flag, I've spoken to a lot of kids on college campuses. We give coming out to parents workshops. And many of them say that they're not ready to come out to the parents. And even if the parents confronted them, they would deny it because they're not ready. And that's probably what... So being involved helped me understand my child and the dynamics of it all.
In retrospect?
Not when it happened.
No. In terms of your own education, what happened from that time?
I heard a public announcement on the radio and a telephone number, and I don't remember exactly how it went, but essentially if there's someone gay in your life, and you have questions, you can call this number. And I called and I talked to Gene Baker, and he was having meetings at his home at the time in 1981.
What was the meeting like?
There were about 3 or 4 parents and a couple of gay men. And we talked, and I found it very helpful, and I got hooked into it because I saw that I could help others. And I started having meetings at my home. This was 1982 already.
What kind of parents came?
Parents who just found out they had gay children.
Your work at this time was social service oriented. At some point you became something of an activist. More political.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, that happened early.
Your daughter didn't ask you to do that, or did she?
No. And this happened because in 1983 we became a chapter of Parents Flag. And late in 1983, in Montgomery County, there were people getting together to try to get to add sexual orientation to the human rights ordinance
in Montgomery
County. And a gay couple, 2 young men, came to one of our meetings and asked for our help. And I testified. There were a lot of fundamentalists in the audience, and they made their voices heard. They were saying that such law is not needed on the one hand, and then saying bad things on the other, put them on an island and nuke them. And a lot of terrible things were being said. This councilman kept bringing up bestiality, and I was so uptight, so upset, and I really, was in the closet still. It was difficult for me.
Why did you think the ordinance was necessary?
I didn't know about it, and I really had no opinion. But as I went to the hearings, and I saw the nastiness, the bigotry, I realized that it was very necessary because there were people out there who would who would support a landlord throwing somebody out just on the basis of their gayness, people being denied jobs or being thrown out of their jobs because they're found out to be gay, wanting to share a room and having difficulties if they're found out to be gay. So I really felt this was very unfair.
Did it remind you at all of your experience in Europe?
I really felt irked that people should be discriminated against. You know, this never sat with me very well. I didn't see why my child should be considered less a person than my non-gay child. I really, you know, I'm a maverick. These injustices never sat with me very well.
Mm-hmm. You didn't just come out of the closet in a little way. You went...
Yeah, with a bang. And you know what I say when I speak now?
What?
I've been doing it with a vengeance ever since.
Uh-huh.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I was boiling inside. I was so stifled. My sense of justice is very strong, and I felt I wanted to speak. Here, this was a new organization. I was the head of it, and how could we reach out to people if I was not able to speak openly? Mm-hmm. And so it was very liberating. But after I became liberated, I really found a great deal of satisfaction in speaking out. And I also found that because of my reasonableness, being a parent, having gray hair, people listened to what I had to say, respected what I said, and I was believable to a lot of people. And then knowing that this was helping families meant a great deal to me. And there's nothing like knowing that you are doing something for someone to get you hooked, you know.
When you say liberating, how do you mean? What was the feeling?
The feeling to be free to speak. Mm-hmm. I did fear for a while, you know, you never know what kind of nuts are out there, and they might throw a bomb at my house or something. You know, you are fearful. And then I realized that if I didn't conquer that fear, I just couldn't function. And then I decided I have to take my chances. It's better than to be afraid. But I do know from experience, parents who speak out or who advocate on behalf of their children are very, very strong advocates. Anytime the parents will take up the cause for their children, they will succeed.
When Paulette Goodman told me about her daughter's discomfort with her mother's activism, I didn't feel particularly sympathetic toward her daughter. What I wouldn't have given for my mother to be a proud PFLAG parent fighting for my rights. Well, a few years later I got my wish, and developed some sympathy for Paulette's daughter. My own mother became a staunch PFLAG parent who championed the cause. On more than one occasion, rather unkindly now that I look back, I reminded my mother that I was the gay one. It can be challenging when your parent takes up what you think of as your fight and does it in a big way. But Paulette made an important point about what parents could get done that we couldn't. During the 4 years Paulette was PFLAG president, from 1988 through 1992, and certainly in the years before that, parents got listened to. They couldn't be dismissed like I could simply because I was gay. Paulette and all PFLAG parents were and are fierce advocates for LGBTQ people. My own mother is long gone, but if she were here, I'd tell her how proud I am these days of the work she did as a passionate PFLAG parent. One thing that Paulette accomplished during her time as PFLAG president made national news. She wrote to First Lady Barbara Bush, mother to mother, asking for words of support for the nation's gay children and their families. And she got those words in the form of a personal note from Barbara Bush that got picked up by the Associated Press. It's hard to imagine now the impact of the First Lady's words of support, but after 8 years of the Reagan presidency and 1 year of the Bush presidency, when the White House virtually ignored gay people, it was historic. You can read Paulette's letter and Barbara Bush's response in the episode notes at makinggayhistory.com. I spoke with Paulette just a few days ago. She's 84, widowed, and lives at the Riderwood Retirement Community in Silver Spring, Maryland. Paulette told me that she was having knee replacement surgery just a couple of days before we planned to post her episode. Paulette, I know you'll be listening, so please know that all of us at Making Gay History are wishing you a speedy and full recovery. Making Gay History is a team effort. Thank you to executive producer Sarah Birmingham and audio engineer Ann Pope. We had production assistance from the amazing Josh Gwynn. Our theme music was composed by Fritz Myers. Thank you also to social media strategist Will Coley, webmaster Jonathan Dozier-Ezel, researchers Bronwyn Pardis and Zachary Seltzer, and photo editor Michael Green. A very special thank you to our guardian angel, Jenna Weiss-Berman. The Making Gay History podcast is a co-production of Pineapple Street Media with assistance from the New York Public Library's Manuscripts and Archives Division and One Archives at the USC Libraries. Season 3 of this podcast is made possible with funding from the Ford Foundation, which is on the front lines of social change worldwide. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe to Making Gay History wherever you get your podcasts. You can also go to makinggayhistory.com. That's where you'll find all our episodes, including photographs, notes, and links to additional information about all the people we feature in Making Gay History. So long, until next time.